Today, we're talking about micromanaging bosses. How do you identify if you have one, what to do if you have one, and just how do you get over the fact that you have a micromanaging boss. So with that, I have 5 tips or signs or things to identify micromanaging bosses, and then at the end of the video, we're gonna talk about how can you tackle a micromanaging boss and kind of get them on your side. Stay tuned. Hello, welcome back to the channel. My name is Benjamin Preston, author of Harness Your Butterflies and creator of the Career Accelerator program. If you are new to the channel and you are interested in professional development information, don't forget to hit the subscribe button below. I have new videos every Tuesday. Don't forget to leave me a comment on this video, drop me a thumbs up for the YouTube algorithm, and let's jump into the tips. Okay, so this video is gonna be all about talking about micromanaging bosses, and if you don't know what a micromanaging boss is, then this probably isn't the video for you, but if you do think that your boss is a micromanager and you just are really fed up with it, I'm gonna talk about the signs of what a micromanaging boss looks like, and then at the end, I'm gonna give you some quick tips to kind of help you figure out how to navigate working with a micromanaging boss. So with that, let's jump into the tips. The first sign that you're working with a micromanaging boss is that they need to know everything. Now, it's normal for a manager to want to know or need to know a certain level of detail when they are managing you or having to report up, because obviously they have a boss as well that they need to give those reports to or pass on that information. But if you're finding that they're asking for a specific level of detail that's really kind of inappropriate or just really not helpful for the workflow or isn't necessary for them to know, it's probably a sign that your boss is a micromanager. And what I will say is, if you find that they're asking you for inappropriate information, it is appropriate to push back and be like, this is not necessary for you to know. So for example, I once had a supervisor when I had a doctor's appointment scheduled. They thought I was interviewing at another company. I said, I have a doctor's appointment, here's all this information. They asked for the phone number of the doctor that I was going to and what the appointment was about, and they wanted to call the doctor to verify that I was going. Now, that's illegal, they can't do that. But what I did say, and what I would encourage you to say if your boss needs to know everything and is a micromanager, you can say, that's not details that you need, and if you don't trust me to go to the doctor on my own, then I think we need to have a visit or a conversation with HR. And that's you can say that very carefully, but that's a conversation that you probably need to have if your boss is asking for all of the information that they don't need. The second way to kind of look at a micromanaging boss is you can tell that there is politics at play. Now, the biggest thing to see with a micromanager is when one day things are going fine and then the next day it's like a whiplash effect where you're like, how did that happen? The chances that your boss are involved with a micromanager, either they are the micromanager or their boss's boss is the micromanager, is when you can clearly identify that politics has some sway, and politics will always have a sway on you within your organization. But if you're noticing that it's affecting your day-to-day work, it's probably a good sign that your boss is a micromanager, because micromanagers like to control everything and they like to be really elbows deep with politics in the organization. So if you're seeing that a lot of your work is a reflection of office politics or things like that, it's a real big sign that your boss is a micromanager and it likes to be involved with politics as a means of controlling what's happening within the organization. The third sign that your boss is a micromanager is that you're jumping through a lot of unnecessary hoops. And what I mean by this is, if it takes you, let's say 30 minutes to get something done and you do it and it's done, that time should be yours and you should be able to just accomplish that task very simply. But if your boss is adding in reporting status and different checkpoints and is kind of making you go through unnecessary things in order to accomplish that goal, and instead of taking it 30 minutes, it takes you 3 hours, that's probably a good sign that your boss is a micromanager. Now, there's a lot of organizations that set up SOPs or processes where sometimes you do have to take a little bit of extra time to document things, to make sure that the approvals are written down. All of that stuff is fair. But if you're looking at your workflow and your boss is making you go through all of these really unnecessary hoops that doesn't have anything to do with SOPs or process or control kind of metrics, or process kind of things, then it's probably a good sign that your boss is a micromanager, and it's always not always a great thing when that happens. Number 4, your boss tells you that they're not a micromanager. Now, this is a classic micromanagement boss tactic, is when they tell you flat out, other people will tell you I'm a micromanager, but I'm not. And a lot of what that is if it's coming out of their mouth that they say they're not a micromanager, it means that someone else has told them that in the past and they're trying to get you on board with their perspective before you come to your own conclusions. And what I will say is if someone's telling you that they're not a micromanager, that's probably the person that you want to avoid when you're working with them. If it's your supervisor, it's a little hard to work around that. But if it's a coworker or a peer saying that they're not a micromanager, it's probably not somebody that you want to spend a ton of time with, because they're probably just trying to kind of create this narrative so that if you hear any perspectives counter to what they're saying, that you won't believe it. And the last sign, the fifth sign that you're working with a micromanager boss, is they think that they know better than everyone else. This is a very clear sign. It's something that you can pinpoint right away. If you are a subject matter expert in a specific topic, a specific area, and your boss brings up the fact that they know more than you, or they try to pretend like they know more than you, it's probably a really good indicator that they are a micromanager. And with that, the key is that you don't want to call them out on all of their BS, as tempting as it might be in the moment, but you want to give them a gentle kind of nudge to correct them if something is incorrect. So if you're the subject matter expert, you say this is the way that it is, your boss says, no, I know more than you, that's not how it is. You can bring in research, data, insights, and say, okay, let's you and I touch base on this later, because I think I have some stuff that you might want to see that might help shape your opinion. Because what happens is if you can kind of nudge a micromanager, it makes it a lot easier for them to buy into what you're selling, versus even if it's factual. But what happens is if you push directly against a micromanager, you're going to get shut down every time, especially if they're your boss, because they don't want to feel like that you're overstepping them or that they need to somehow defend their experience or intellect or whatever. I'm gonna give you some quick tips with how to work with a micromanager. Not that it's always ideal, but up until the point where you can kind of get out from under wherever they are, these tips are gonna be somewhat helpful for you. So the biggest thing is always make sure that you're being trustworthy with a micromanager. The reason that micromanagers micromanage is because they don't trust you. And it might be that you are very trustworthy, but I would just say when building a rapport with a micromanager, you see early that someone's a micromanager, try to build trust as strong as possible. You don't have to trust them, but they need to be able to trust you. So if that just means doing the little things right, making sure that you do what you say you're gonna do and things like that, and then slowly as you start building the relationship, get them to back off of being a micromanager. Another thing that you can think about when you're dealing with a micromanager is making sure not to challenge them directly. The biggest reason that people are micromanagers is because they're insecure, which again is not your problem, but it is your problem if they're taking it out on you. So making sure that you aren't being confrontational with the individual, but instead you're kind of nudging them or guiding them is gonna be a really, really helpful thing for you. The last thing that I'm gonna tell you when dealing with a micromanager is making sure that you have a support network of people who are able to kind of give you a perspective that isn't the same as your supervisor. Now, what happens usually is if you're working one-to-one with a micromanager, what you're gonna eventually find is that it's gonna feel like gaslighting, where their perspective on reality is completely different from yours, and you're just gonna be like, where are we disconnecting? Why am I thinking that we were on the same page and now all of a sudden you're being a micromanager? You probably want to make sure that you have a support network of people who can give you a regular objective opinion instead of making it feel like you're kind of in this wilderness by yourself. So those are just some quick tips on how to deal with a micromanager. If you guys like this video, if you want me to create more content around micromanagers, how to deal with them, this was a video that actually came up because someone left a comment on my YouTube channel. So if you're interested in more of this type of content, please let me know. Don't forget to leave me a thumbs up and subscribe if you like this kind of content. I have new videos every Tuesday. And with that, I will see you on the next one.